We're now joined by Mona Abuamara, the Chief Representative of the Palestinian General Delegation here in Canada. Madame Abuamara, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael.
I appreciate this is a difficult time. And as we were talking before we came on air, you have been receiving many phone calls. Could you talk to us about the pleas that you're hearing, the stories that you're hearing right now?
I think the desperation in those pleas can be vivid when people are not asking you for anything, but just telling you that they might not be there the next day. And that's what's heartbreaking and makes you feel that they do not have hope in you or in anybody else to save them, because they feel that death or desperation is imminent. So it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Today we saw Joe Biden in Israel, and we also heard the statement from the Israeli government that they will allow the delivery of humanitarian aid going into Gaza through Egypt. What's your reaction to that news?
You know, the bar is so low. At this point, it's day 12 with 3,000, more than almost 4,000 people killed and 13,000 injured. Basic necessities for people, just for the injured and children who live there, are non-existent. So the main cause, and Israel has been saying that since day one, that it will let the aid to allow it to come in, but what we saw was totally the opposite. We saw threats of bombing the convoys. We saw actual bombing of the Rafah border. We saw bombing of the warehouses for the UNRWA, where they keep what's left of aid. And since then, Rafah border crossing on the Palestinian side has been bombed numerous times. So we hear a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, the reality is a lot different.
Do you have any added assurance, though, in any sense, now that Joe Biden has come there? Because he stated, or at least the U.S. State Department has stated, that part of their intent was, yes, to show support for Israel, but also to find out the parameters of what Israel's trying to do. Joe Biden being very clear, he believes the enemy here is not the Palestinian people, but Hamas.
I understand, again, what's being said. But we have thousands of people murdered, more than 60% of them women and children. So I don't know why wait to day 12 to tell Israel that their enemy is not the Palestinian people, when the Palestinian people are being butchered every day. We have around 50 families that have been wiped off the civil record. 500 people just do not exist anymore, whole families. So it's hard to see the beautiful side of that change and attention to the human crises that have been created solely because of impunity and utter support with unconditional, unequivocal, as the free world says it in their statements. And that, knowing perfectly what it means when it comes to Gaza. You have 365 square kilometers with 2.3 million people, more than half of them children. So no matter what type of response that is, unequivocal, a green light to genocide, which we're witnessing now.
I appreciate it. It's not an easy question to ask of you, but I must ask it because it has been said that what is happening right now is because of Hamas's attack on October the 7th. And so it is Hamas that has put the Palestinian people in danger. What do you say to that?
Listen, if Israel can excuse itself for bombing civilians, then it can't carry that rhetoric when it talks about its civilian. You can't have the cake and eat it too. If civilians are off the bat, then you actually do something to prevent them from being the target. And until now, we haven't seen that ever happening. We have seen schools, we have seen hospitals like yesterday, and it doesn't matter that we always have a vague situation when it comes to the world, the need for the world to take a stand against something that Israel has done. But from our experience, looking at everything that has happened, the experts, it's very easy to see that neither Hamas nor Jihad have the capability to inflict fatalities in this type of just force, hundreds of casualties. And simply at this point in time, there is a need for Israel to continue whatever it's doing, and that would jeopardize its ability, because it would be very hard for the states, the steadfast allies, to support something like that if the case was proved to be Israel. And that reminds us of the Shireen Abu Akleh moment when Israel decided to claim that it was a Palestinian fighter that killed her. And then it changed to, it might be us, but we don't know. Then it is us, but we didn't mean to.
Although with the Al Arab hospital, Israel points to their tracking, saying that it was an errant rocket fired by Palestinian militants. And Joe Biden came today and backed up that story, and U.S. military officials say that they have several vectors of intelligence that point not to Israel, but to a rocket from again, extremist elements within the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, I think, needless to say, the other day, Mr. Biden cried on TV saying he saw videos or pictures, and then the White House came out and said that was not the case. So I'm sorry if Palestinians need an investigation that does not involve the stakeholders in this war to decide what the reality is on the ground. Because once we move away in months of times, and then it's not going to matter anymore who did it, and Israel, as usual, will have impunity, total and utter impunity, like in many other cases. And the case of this hospital is not any different than any other place that Israel, for instance, bombed the UNRWA shelter for people who were running to when they asked them to leave their homes. The convoys that were trying to flee after Israel ordered them to turn to another place, just simply because it wants to evacuate, to displace 1.1 million people in 24 hours. So these attacks are not separate. The Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital was not just bombed yesterday, it was bombed the day before with 2 warning bombs, as they were told. Not to mention that they were asked to evacuate the hospital, which was not something they could do. There are just a couple left.
What do you take of the charge and the allegation then that in many ways it is hard because it is Hamas that are using the Palestinian people as human shields, hospitals and schools included?
Well, you see it on TV. You see who's being killed. So it's not something that's happening behind
But should Hamas bear the
doors.
responsibility for that? Because that's what American officials often point to, what Israeli officials often point to, that it is Hamas that's using the Palestinian people as shields. They don't want to hurt the Palestinian people, as they say. Their target is Hamas.
But they're bombing the civilians in those places.
But does Hamas need to take responsibility for that?
Did you get Hamas, after the bombings happened, did Israel or the U.S. come out and say, yes, we got militants from Hamas in a hospital or in the school or in a bakery, like a bakery that brings bread to 100,000 people? When that happens, then we can talk. But just saying that we know something, and then when we see people carrying the remains, parts of their children in trash bags, carrying them around, there's no excuse for that in the world, to have these thousands of people being butchered in that manner. for the simple excuse that Israel is putting as if it's targeting Hamas while it's targeting the whole of the Palestinian population.
I'm wondering what you want to hear from Canada right now, what you would like to see from the Canadian government. Because the Canadian government, while expressing that Israel has the right to defend itself from terrorism, from Hamas, they too are expressing their concern for the Palestinian people. So what would you like to see from Canada?
I think the thing with the right of self-defense for Israel has been a key issue in the numbers of people being murdered by Israel. Because as I told you, the unequivocal support and that right is not restrained. If after everything that has happened, we haven't seen the government not just asking, you know, when it comes to Palestine, the Western world always stands still about action. We hear condemnations, we hear calls, but it would be much easier than to send these planes, warplanes and ammunition and to the region to push for a solution that the international legitimacy has already agreed on, a two-state solution where the Palestinians have a just solution to their misery, the 75 years of misery that was put aside. So what I wish to see Canada do is to end the discourse of having Palestine be the exception to the protection of the rules-based international order, for Canada to implement its policy towards Palestine, to push not only with statements but with actual actions to push for the two-state solution. Because no occupation will end by itself. No one would want to end an occupation by themselves. The international community that made this rules-based international order needs to push for that, and we've seen it elsewhere, and how hard the international community works and what it actually could do to enforce that rule.
Thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much for having me.